Now, one of the clues that I found most interesting that led you to believe that the story wasn't right was the jumpers. That right there that I never thought to even think about that. And the attention to detail that you had when it came to, well, look at their clothes. Why are their shirts off? Shouldn't their clothes be wet? All that kind of stuff. What made you focus in on the jumpers?
Well, I looked at everything. When I looked at the site, my background is in, observation to look at material properties, but also, forensics research in about everywhere. I don't know if the listeners are aware of that. My bachelor's degree is in structural engineering. My master's degree is in engineering mechanics, which is like applied physics. My PhD is in materials engineering science, which was an interdisciplinary degree between materials engineering, engineering mechanics, and chemistry, and a few other things. So it's very much into mechanics, and all my graduate work has been in the area of interferometry, looking at interference patterns to determine material properties. So looking at, observing the most minute detail is where I'm usually at, and thinking the logic around each thing. I think too often we're taught to take multiple choice tests, and as soon as you have the scales tip, you have one thing just tipping more than another, boom, you grab that answer and move on, rather than look at what's really there. And so I looked at all these images as though I was there. I was on the street. Or I was that person. What is that person feeling or thinking? What are they smelling? What are they tasting? How are their reactions? And then you start seeing more, and it was as though these people were communicating with me. They were communicating to the photographer, and they were saying something. And what would if you were in this position, what would cause you to disrobe before hanging out the window of the 105th floor?
That would be one of the last things I'm thinking about. Just unless I can't think about it. I'm thinking about the high heat. Okay, so say there's high heat.
Oh, you're assuming high heat.
I'm assuming it. I'm assuming it because I see smoke and I associate the smoke with the heat. And you're absolutely right. But I'm thinking about maybe high heat. Okay, well that would make me take some clothes off or whatever.
But if there's a fire, firefighters don't fight fires in the nude.
No, absolutely not. Of course not. You're right. You're absolutely
right. You don't flip burgers, over a barbecue. You don't flip burgers barehanded.
No, that you certainly don't. You certainly don't. And what I found
clothing is a protective layer.
What I found interesting is there are people hanging out the windows right above the hole, and there's or not even above the hole, but there's like a smoky haze underneath where these people are standing, but it doesn't look like there's any visible smoke coming out of the windows that they're hanging out of. There's nothing there.
Exactly.
And that's you know what I've seen that's similar to that, where people are kind of driven almost batty from pain or from feeling hot, is the microwave energy weapons that the military sometimes employs.
Yep, and they want to jump out of the way.
Yeah, your first instinct, it's almost an involuntary reaction. You just have to get out of there. You have to move. You got to do something. You can't just stay there and take it. And the reactions in the photographs look very, very similar to something like that. And that's just based on my life experience and seeing some of those tests and then seeing some of the pictures here. Now, what did you think about that?
Exactly. Like they're, hanging out the windows over the hole. But there's upwind of there's nobody hanging out the windows. So why wouldn't, if you're hanging out the windows right above the hole, you would think you'd get more smoke or whatever you've been inhaling. So if for whatever reason you need to hang out the window, why not go down the end of the hall and hang out the window, upwind?
Right. Exactly right. I mean, unless of course there's something blocking your way, or whatever. But I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see it in their actions. You know what I mean?
And it's also, if it's upwind, up in the northwest corner, open up the windows and let the fresh air move from north to south through the building.
Right. Absolutely right.
But why hang over the hole? But what becomes more interesting is, some have their pants off, some have their shirts off, and then there's the one guy that grabbed my attention in a big way, who's hanging with one hand and one foot, taking his pants off. If there's smoke inside, and for whatever peculiar reason he needs to take his pants off, can't he just hold his breath, step inside, take the pants off, and step back out?
You would think.
Why is it important to take the pants off while you're outside?
That's a good question. The other question that I had was, you had a picture of a jumper that was very far out from the building itself. How the heck did he get out there?
Jumping harder than a world's record for a standing broad jump.
Exactly right. That's the other thing. How do you defy that? How do you?
And he has a piece of the pant leg or something trailing off his foot as well.
It almost looks like he's disrobing in midair. That's what it looks like. It looks like he's trying to get his pants off in midair.
And if he slipped from the window while taking his pants off, how did he get 100 feet away from the building?
Exactly right.
Well, wouldn't you turn into a glider? That would be just like jumping off the Empire State Building. Before you hit the ground, you'd probably smack into the building about a dozen times just from the air pressure alone.
I mean, turbulence around the side.
Well, see, up here in western Pennsylvania, we have flying squirrels that jump from tree to tree, some 30, 40 feet in diameter, or some 30, 40 feet apart. Wouldn't a human being, in a sense, even base jumpers, just glide out to where he landed?
Oh, but like a flying squirrel has like webbed armpits, don't they? So they can be like a sailplane.
Right. No, I agree with you there, but now I've seen skydivers, of course, they do it, but they're wearing jumpsuits. These people here are just in their everyday plain clothes that aren't exactly loose around them,
Well, they're kind of flap a little bit to slow them down a little bit, but they definitely aren't like sailplanes.
Exactly
and
right.
You look at, in order to go some horizontal distance, unless you're getting some kind of lift, you're going to drop at a certain rate, and from the say the roof to the ground. Let's say if you ran as hard as you could horizontally and jumped off the roof, and you just coasted horizontally, assuming no wind resistance, by the time you hit the ground, you can only be so far from the building.
No, you're absolutely right. Now, the jumpers themselves, people witnessed these. They took photographs. We also saw a video. I want to talk a little bit about the hole and how the hole got there and the plane and everything else. One of the questions you ask in your book is, what did the eyewitnesses observe that day? Did they see a plane hit the tower? Did they hear any airplane?
I don't get into that in the book because I think it's a distraction.
Right.
To worry about the planes. Planes do not cause buildings to turn into powder in midair. So they're not an issue here.
But let me ask you this: for a motive standpoint, if you're trying to,
hang on.
Okay.
We first, for any type of scientific forensic study, you must first start with what happened, not, and then only then can you solve how it happened, and only then can you determine who did it, and only then what their motivation was.
I'm going to be.
The rest is just speculation.
I know exactly. So I'm going to give you I'm going to speculate a bit. If I was a dastardly evil villain, if you will, and I'm about to exact one of the largest crimes, one of the largest mass murders in some time,
So you need a getaway car.
And I need to shift the focus away from what really happened. Then what better way to do it than to fly an airplane into that? Even though it was common knowledge at the time that when the World Trade Center was designed, it was designed to get to have an impact of a fully loaded Boeing 707 airliner to fly in it at 600 miles an hour. And it's happened in the past. It survived a bomb in the basement. It survived all these things. And
it's built for a Category 5 hurricane, too.
Exactly right. Yeah, I think it was to withstand like 200-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, this building, it wasn't rickety by any standards. I mean, it was a well.
Oh, here's something that brings the civil engineering issue into play.
Okay.
Is if you built this out in the middle of Iowa, sorry, corn, let's put it in the middle of an Iowa cornfield. Corn doesn't have much respect, doesn't have much value, and so if this building falls over and takes out the cornfield, who cares, right?
Sure,
so
just corn.
The importance of it not falling over, it doesn't rate very high. But if this building is built in New York City and it falls over, it takes out southern Manhattan with it.
That's true.
So there's an importance factor. There's a safety factor which compensates for material defects and so forth, and unexpected overloads and that type of thing. But then there's also an importance factor, which is a multiplier of that value, which if it's in New York City, you don't want this building falling over.
No,
it's in the middle of Iowa, who cares? Like I say, apologize to the corn there. But like if you have an area where, let's say New Orleans, is prone to hurricanes or whatever. If other buildings fall, the last building you want to have destroyed is your hospital. Hospital needs to be stronger than anything else, and so it has a higher importance factor. Just like the World Trade Center, because it's over a quarter mile tall each tower, and if they tipped over, they take out the rest of southern Manhattan. So given that, the amount it was over-designed had to have been incredible.
Yeah, I agree. John, you got another question?
Yes, Dr. Wood, the lamestream media and the powers that be like to say, oh, it was the kerosene that did it. You have credentials, ma'am, that are longer than my arm, and anything you say I would take as the gospel at the current time, because you seem to have everything needed to really put some weight behind your story. So I ask you, is it possible for kerosene to heat up to when it burns to be able to melt those?
I choose to deal with what did happen, not hypotheticals. The building did not burn up, nor did it crash down. It turned to powder.
Mm-hmm.
But for people who have trouble grasping that and what a building would do if it did heat up, I gave this quiz to my students, a pop quiz. It was a fun freebie attendance quiz kind of thing. But it's on my website, drjudywood.com. That's drjudywood.com. Put a /911, and that'll take you to this pop quiz. And I don't know if you want to go there or not. I've got the quiz is you have a big pot of water you want to heat up on your campfire. Well, you don't have a grill, so you get these old coat hangers, these old metal coat hangers. You wad them up to make kind of a grill. Put that over where you're going to build your fire. Put the big, huge pot of water on it, and start your fire. As the fire heats up, what's going to happen? It's a multiple choice quiz.
She must have been at my bug out location during dinner time, because that's how I set up my grill.
That's funny. It almost begs the question also, if that's the case, right? And you just said they over-engineered these buildings because of the location and the importance of the surrounding environment.
But still, if it did heat up, I don't know if you went to that web page or not.
Oh, I haven't been there yet. I can't. Unfortunately, I can't navigate and
Okay,
talk at the same time.
yeah, it's a little tricky there.